Welcome, High Floor Heroes. This is High Floor Fantasy. I'm Chad, and my goal is getting you closer to a championship. Let's have a look at the quarterback starts for this week. Dak Prescott at Washington, Aaron Rodgers versus Chicago, Kirk Cousins versus Pittsburgh, Matt Stafford at Denver, and the quarterback start of the week, Lamar Jackson at Cleveland. While Jackson might seem like an obvious start, he's actually been somewhat inconsistent over the last 4 games. It's rare to see him put up a sub-20-point performance, but since Week 10, he's had 2. Week 13 was a roller coaster, with Jackson rushing for under 60 yards, passing for over 250, and salvaging his fantasy day with 1 touchdown pass. He was also sacked 7 times. Jackson is heading into a 4.5 out of 5-star matchup against the Cleveland Browns defense, allowing over 17 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks while averaging over 25 points a game himself. Look for a good outing from Lamar Jackson this week. Now we'll look at the quarterback sits for the week. Matt Ryan at Carolina, Jared Goff at Denver, Justin Fields at Green Bay if he plays, Baker Mayfield versus Baltimore, and the quarterback sit of the week, Russell Wilson at Houston. Wilson has struggled since returning from injury and has a history of declining performance in the second half of the season. This may seem like a contrarian take, but Wilson's growing unhappiness in Seattle is also at play here. Wilson has thrown 3 interceptions in the last 4 games and didn't throw a touchdown in 2 of the last 4. 2 red zone turnovers in Week 13 are also cause for alarm. Wilson has been trending up over the past few weeks, but he's still a risky start. Facing a tough defense in Houston against fantasy quarterbacks make him a sit for me this week. We have 4 teams on bye this week as we approach the fantasy playoffs: Indianapolis, Miami, New England, and Philadelphia. Make sure to vet your rosters and don't let one of those bye week players slip past you into a starting spot. I've been guilty of that myself. Let's move on to the starts at the running back position. Chuba Hubbard versus Atlanta, Saquon Barkley at the Los Angeles Chargers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus the Las Vegas Raiders, Najee Harris at Minnesota, and the running back start of the week, Javonte Williams versus Detroit. Williams had his chance to shine in Melvin Gordon's absence, and shine he did. He was the Broncos' weapon in Week 13, turning in an eye-popping 29 fantasy point performance. He rushed for over 100 yards and caught 6 passes for 76 receiving yards. He also rung the register with 1 receiving touchdown. Denver hosts Detroit this week, who have allowed over 22 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Keep an eye on Melvin Gordon's status, and if he sits, Javonte Williams is a must-start. Now we'll have a look at the running back sits. Once again, you can sit both Devin Singletary and Zach Moss in Buffalo. Zach Moss probably shouldn't be rostered any longer. Also sit Mike Davis at Carolina and Tevin Coleman versus New Orleans. And for the running back sit of the week, Jamal Williams at Denver. Williams provided value in the absence of DeAndre Swift, but when Swift returns, it'll likely prove to be short-lived. Swift's status will be important to watch for the rest of the week. Williams rushed for 71 yards in Week 13 and hauled in just 1 reception. That's serviceable as an RB2 or 3, but he's clearly not the weapon that DeAndre Swift is. This recommendation hinges purely on the anticipated return of Swift. Facing a somewhat stingy defense in Denver, if Swift is back, Jamal Williams is out. Here's a reminder to keep Thursday night players out of your flex spot. I hope you all have or had a good Thursday night game. This week starts at the wide receiver position. Adam Thielen versus Pittsburgh, DJ Moore versus Atlanta, Elijah Moore versus New Orleans, Hunter Renfrow at Kansas, and the wide receiver start of the week, Jamar Chase versus San Francisco. Simply put, Jamar Chase is one of the most promising young receivers in the league. Currently ranked at number 10, he's in the middle of the pack for consistency with a high upside. Chase hasn't found the end zone in the last 2 games, but touchdown regression can move in a positive direction as well as negative. He's especially valuable on longer routes downfield and may find a chance to score in Week 14. Keep an eye on Joe Burrow's pinky situation. If Burrow is a total green light, lock Jamar Chase in. Now for the sits at wide receiver. Marquez Callaway at the New York Jets, A.J. Green versus the Los Angeles Rams, Marvin Jones at Tennessee, Amon-Ra St. Brown at Denver, and the wide receiver sit of the week, Courtland Sutton versus Detroit. Sutton hasn't proven to be a valuable start for the Denver offense. Jerry Jeudy's return continues to overshadow Sutton's opportunity. Sutton hasn't seen the end zone in 5 games. Bridgewater doesn't throw much anyway, and between Jeudy, Tim Patrick, and Noah Fant, Sutton is clearly not a top option. Sutton has averaged less than 2 receptions in each of the last 4 games. Detroit has been somewhat tough against the pass, and with a healthy Jerry Jeudy, Sutton is a sit. Finally, we'll look at the tight end position for the week. Start Dalton Schultz at Washington, Zach Ertz versus the Los Angeles Rams, and the tight end start of the week, Dawson Knox at Tampa. The tight end position is always tough, and as we're headed toward the fantasy playoffs, I couldn't find 5 to recommend starting just for the sake of recommending 5. Dawson Knox is currently my number 11 tight end, scoring an average of almost 12 fantasy points per game. Week 13 was not the best performance from Knox, but the weather conditions surely didn't help in the passing game. This week in Tampa could be a rebound opportunity with 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league facing off on the Gulf Coast. Knox has been slightly inconsistent, but has certainly been one of the unexpected breakout tight ends of 2021. Tampa is a middle-of-the-pack defense against opposing tight ends, and with better conditions for the passing game, Knox is a tight end 1 this week. This week sits at tight end. Cole Kmet at Green Bay, Jared Cook, almost a weekly sit, versus the New York Giants, and the tight end sit of the week, C.J. Uzomah versus San Francisco. C.J. Uzomah has cratered after a solid stretch toward the middle of the season. He has failed to post a double-digit fantasy score in 6 of his last 6 games. Despite being listed as the team's tight end 1, he's only averaging around 3 receptions per game. He also hasn't seen a touchdown since Week 7. Cincinnati is hosting the number 1 defense against tight ends this week, allowing less than 5 points per game to the position. Sit Uzomah. That'll do it for this week's starts and sits. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to click that like button so this video can get some more good exposure. Also, please subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and leave a comment below. Thank you, and best of luck in all your games this week.